Hello, my name is Colin Fairley. I'm a philosopher and political theorist based at Queen's University in Canada, and this is my new YouTube channel titled The Intellect's Cove, where I come on every month or so to share some research interests and things that I cover in undergraduate and graduate seminars to give you a sense of what some philosophers and political theorists are engaging with in the 21st century. So I'm going to cover two topics in this first introductory video. I'm going to say a little bit about myself, so a little bit more navel-gazing than I typically will do in these videos, but just to kind of give you a sense of who I am and what you can determine whether or not I'm somebody you might want to watch future videos with. And then I'm going to spend some time unpacking why I came up with the title Intellect's Cove and the kind of spirit behind creating this YouTube channel. So first I want to mention a disclaimer. This applies not only to this video, but to all of the videos that I post on this channel. This channel is my own project. While I work as a professor at Queen's University, nothing I say here is necessarily affiliated with Queen's University, and this channel is done independently of my official capacity as a professor at Queen's University. All right, so a little bit about who am I. This is my day job. I am primarily based in the Political Studies Department. My official title is the Sir Edward Peacock Professor of Political Theory, but I'm also cross-appointed with philosophy, and as I'll say in a moment, I've switched disciplines throughout my career, teaching in a variety of different subjects. I have 27 years of experience as a professor. I started teaching back in the previous century when the lecture theater looked more like this than it does now, teaching initially on overheads and then progressing through whiteboards, blackboards, and PowerPoint, and now into YouTube. I started my career teaching in the UK, starting in philosophy. After my PhD at Bristol University, I taught for a year at Aberdeen University, and then I defected from philosophy going into political science, first at Birmingham, then at Manchester. I also spent a year at Oxford as a research fellow. In Canada, I taught at Waterloo University for 5 years, and I've been based at Queen's University now for 18 years. And one of the great things about being an academic is you get to have sabbaticals, which gives you an opportunity to travel to a different place, work with a different university students and colleagues. And so I spent a semester as a visiting professor at UCLA's School of Public Affairs, where I taught graduate courses. I was the Fulbright Research Chair at the University of Manila for a semester, and I also spent half a year at Bilkent University in Turkey. All right, so it's enough about me, but let me say a few comments about Intellect's Cove and why I chose that particular title for this YouTube channel. If you go over to the Oxford Learner's Dictionary, you can get a definition of intellect and cove, but really it's the meshing of these two things that I want to emphasize. When we think about our intellect, it's our ability to think logically and clearly. And in particular, I'm interested in critical reasoning. That's the skill set of philosophy. And so I hope the spirit of this channel is for any of you that ever took a seminar course in philosophy or political theory, and it's been a number of years since you were at university, it kind of mimic that experience by inviting you into my virtual classroom for some discussion and debate. And for those of you that never had the opportunity but wish that you could have, that's even more important. And so I want to expand that educational opportunity to that audience in particular. And the idea of a cove is like a protected space, like a cavern that's shielded from the wind of the sea and the ocean. And I'm sure, like me, all of you feel overwhelmed by all the constant barrage of information from mass media, social media. And the idea of the Intellect's Cove is that when you want to take a retreat to a quiet place and do some deep thinking about ethical issues and some of the societal challenges of biomedical innovation, this is the place for you. I'm just going to kind of lay out some of the argumentation that arises and some of the topics that I deal with and invite you to digest that information and refine your own intuitions and judgments about some really fascinating topics. And one of the things I'll say about my primary hope for this channel is that not only in watching the video will you find it a fun and educational experience, but then you'll use it as a catalyst to go out into the world and connect face to face with people and engage in conversation and debate and deliberation about these philosophical and theoretical issues. That's really where I see the potential for societal progress in the future, is this grassroots movement of critical thinking. I think it's so important for humanity at this particular time to be proactive in our critical thinking and in our social skills. And I'm hoping that this channel can be a small part of a solution pushing us in this direction rather than the direction of being dogmatic or just asking AI to come up with answers to tough questions rather than have the courage to delve into them on our own. Right now, I'm also what I describe as a pragmatist philosopher, and to those that don't know that jargon, it can sound a little bit intimidating, so I'm going to give two definitions here. The first one from Britannica, not particularly helpful, it's a little convoluted for me, but what for me pragmatism is about focusing our critical attention on the realm of ideas and seeing how those ideas have been beneficial or harmful in helping us address the real world practical predicaments that human societies face, right? Ideas are extremely powerful, can be a powerful catalyst for change, but they can also constrain us and blind us to the problems of our time. And so I believe it's important to critically assess and evaluate the realm of ideas. And my favorite pragmatist philosopher is John Dewey, and he's one that places an emphasis on this, the importance of education in critical thinking for the health of our democracies. All right, a more useful definition of pragmatism for the purposes of this channel comes from this book, Pragmatism is a Way of Life, by the husband and wife, Hillary and Ruth Ann Putnam. And in particular, I want to draw on some insights from Chapter 1, Taking Pragmatism Seriously, by Ruth Putnam. I'll emphasize 3 points that she draws on in that chapter. The first one is that when we think about the moral enterprise, there's no Robinson Crusoe strategy for approaching a moral life, right? We can't figure out morality and justice in isolation from other people. It's inherently a social enterprise. So we have to recognize that we live in a world we share with others. Morality is social. This was emphasized by my favorite pragmatist, John Dewey. And so we need to recognize that inquiry is thus a cooperative enterprise. We need to be able to communicate with other people. We gain valuable insight about their lived experiences, the way they perceive the various trade-offs that arise as we navigate through the social landscape. And so this YouTube channel, in a way, can facilitate this socialization if, after watching videos, you go out into the external world, interact with people, discuss these topics with them and kind of gain some enlightened understanding about the perspectives that they bring to the issue, and then learn to effectively articulate your own position. Through the conversation with others, we enhance our own intellectual virtues as well as building a better understanding of the life perspectives of others. All right, a second point that Putnam raises in this chapter is that we need to see ourselves not as a spectator in the world, but rather as an agent in it, right? So as a spectator at a concert, you're just watching the performance and enjoying what you see, but you're not actually creating music. But when it comes to a moral life and the social world, we are agents in it. It means we have to confront the question of what needs to be done. This needs to be at the foreground of our deliberations and our discussions and debates. Now, I trained as an analytic political philosopher, which often involves a great deal of armchair theorizing. Many of my colleagues actually have quite a disdain for the empirical real world, and they try to detach themselves from it. And I can be a pluralist. I don't have a problem with some philosophers engaging in this kind of armchair theorizing, but I think it should be the exception rather than the typical normal mode of operating within ethics and political theory. So I'm somewhat of a critic of armchair theorizing. Over the past 25 years, I've gone from being a proponent of it to being quite a fierce critic of it. And so I'm in favor of putting that armchair into the volcano, letting it melt, and instead, focusing our attention on the fascinating, actual, real-world societal challenges of the 21st century. Right, and the third point, the final point I'll draw on from Putnam's piece is that we shouldn't make a sharp distinction between theorizing about moral problems and then the broader societal context that raises them as social and political problems. And this will be something that comes to the fore when I post a bunch of videos on my book, Aging and the Ethics of Longevity Science. I'm particularly interested in the communicative challenges that scientists face in communicating the societal significance of their science to both politicians and the broader general public in terms of the potential benefits and drawbacks of scientific innovation. And so Putnam reminds us that the methods of inquiry apply to both. I'm not going to be engaging only in abstract thought experiments, but rather to contextualize the actual moral predicaments that we face in the broader societal challenges, because that will then guide our deliberations to more meaningful prescriptions in terms of how we can make serious headway on these challenges. So that is it for my very first intro. As I mentioned at the beginning, I emphasized mostly who I am, so you have at least some sense of the background by which I bring this channel into existence, a little bit about the spirit of the Intellect's Cove. I hope you will engage in a kind of a social contract with me that when you watch this content, your responsibility after is to go out into the real world, socialize with other people by having direct discussions about the issues of philosophy and ethics that fascinate you. Find like-minded people, and a kind of grassroots movement of critical thinking is going to be vital for the health of democracies in the 21st century. And I want this channel to be at least a small contributing positive factor to insulating us against dogma, against impulsive decision making, against the distorting frames that we are exposed to on a daily basis.